I'm a Pan-Africanist for sure. The most fundamental question for Africa is there Africa, or is there a fragmented 55 countries in what is purportedly a union, but is an extremely weak organization?
There is no doubt that the West uses a divide and conquer strategy on the continent of Africa and on much of the global South more broadly. This strategy exists because the Western world operates through a zero-sum mindset, where maintaining economic dominance depends on destabilizing and exploiting other regions. In this video, we're going to explore the words of Jeffrey Sachs, who presents one of the clearest Pan-African plans ever laid out to push back against that agenda. If you support Africa ending the era of exploitation, then this video is for you. If you don't know me, my name is TJ, I'm Nigerian and British mixed, and on this channel, we talk about African geopolitics. So Jeffrey Sachs is one of the most influential economists in the world, known for advising governments on development, macroeconomic reform, and global financial systems. He's worked closely with the United Nations, led major policy initiatives on poverty, sustainability, and is widely regarded as one of the few Western academics consistently calling out the structural barriers that keep Africa underdeveloped. This particular talk, just delivered yesterday alongside Professor Fofack, was one of his most direct conversations about Africa, openly tackling the issues of imperialism, fragmentation, and the urgent need for unity. There are not too many white men from the West who openly declare that they are a Pan-Africanist. Yet, unlike many voices who use that label loosely, he is able to clearly explain how Africa can move forward and what it would truly take for the continent to reach its full potential. In particular, the concept of ending the divide and rule agenda the West and the United States in particular continue to impose on the continent. Let's take a look at his logic together.
Pan-Africanism would have come about in the 1950s and 1960s had the US, UK, and France not actively killed it, and literally killed its leaders in many cases. So the failure of African unity is a Western contrivance.
Immediately after hearing this statement, it becomes clear that the idea of African unity collapsing on its own is a myth. The architects of modern global power actively prevented the continent from forming a strong unified bloc. By exposing this, we established the foundation of understanding why the divide and conquer strategy did not end with colonialism. It simply changed form.
The United States doesn't want unity anywhere. It doesn't want China, Japan, and Korea to get together. It doesn't want unity in Africa. That might make cobalt more expensive. It might make it harder to exploit the continent. It might make it harder to put in military bases in the continent. And this is true everywhere in the world. Divide and conquer is the essence of imperialist strategy.
This is where we begin to connect the history to the present. Sachs is not speaking metaphorically. He's naming the material initiatives that drive modern fragmentation. When a united Africa becomes harder to manipulate, harder to extract resources from, and harder to militarily dominate, those who benefit from that cultural arrangement will naturally resist any change. This is why understanding the economic logic of imperialism is so essential. Many of you have dropped comments asking how you can support this channel, even offering to donate or help financially. Until recently, I had no way to make this possible. But now through my Substack, it's never been easier for you to lend me some support. There's a free tier where you'll get 1 email per week, and for just $5 a month, about the price of a nice coffee, you'll receive a daily written update from all of my content, everything I produce. I'll be engaging with those of you who join, asking your thoughts on how to serve you and the continent better. Sometimes my videos do get demonetized, and there's also a small chance, as we saw with the Platform Africa stream, that a channel like this could be deplatformed. Even if the worst happens, we can regroup, rebuild, and keep pushing forward. We don't want any third party controlling this message, so with email backing us up, we can communicate directly. Thank you in advance for signing up. I look forward to connecting with you, not just on YouTube, but via email as well.
So I think Africa's future, to my mind, most importantly, will be determined by the capacity or incapacity of this highly varied continent with its distinct histories, with the colonial legacy with the 55 national entities, either to unify or not to unify.
This is the heart of the entire conversation. According to Sachs, unity is not just a moral idea, it is the single determining factor for Africa's future. And I've spoken about this many times on my channel. Every major challenge becomes easier when addressed at the continental scale. Fragmentation drains capacity, splits resources, and weakens Africans' leverage. The moment we see unity as infrastructure, the whole conversation shifts.
The African Union, as an institution, has to say to the United States, to Europe, to China, to everybody, do not fund us 1 rand. We will fund ourselves, thank you. And this is really important, not to be owned and operated by anybody else. But that means that the countries of this region need to put in the money into the budget for the African Union and to say this is our own destiny, and we are not going to have the EU pay for this service and this one pay for that, and because then there will never be the unity and direction needed.
Here, Sachs provides a practical and urgent step: financial independence at the continental level. He is arguing that as long as the AU, the African Union, depends on external funding, its agenda will never be African-driven. Rejecting donor influence is not symbolic, it is the foundation of political independence. Without this shift, unity becomes impossible.
The largest iron ore in the world is in Guinea. The Subi.
The largest deposits.
Yes, the largest in the world, the deposit. Yeah. And yet, the whole continent spend an average at $50 billion, $60 billion every year to import steel.
Good.
And Nigeria alone is $4 billion to import steel. But collectively, it would take less than $30 billion to build that mine and exploit it. So the fragmentation has cost in the sense that we are not able to pull the resources together to realize what is actually the foundation for industrialization, the steel industry.
This example exposes the economic cost of fragmentation in a way that no statistic ever could. Africa is forced to import steel while sitting on the largest iron ore reserve on Earth. I actually covered this story about the mine in Guinea about a week ago because it really does highlight the issues that we're facing here in the continent. I know I've said it so many times, but you're going to hear it again right now. How is it that Africa is forced to import steel while sitting on the largest iron ore reserve on Earth? This is not a failure of potential, it is a failure of coordination. If the continent pooled resources around shared industrial projects, it would break the cycle of exporting raw materials and importing finished goods. The benefit would ricochet across the entire continent.
But back in the 60s, Africa was far better off than China in terms of income, in terms of wealth. In fact, the image of Beijing at the time, Peking, were bicycles, while the image of Africa were Mercedes-Benz and so forth. And so the gap was quite significant. But today, I think we've seen, the last time I saw the data, the gap between Africa and Asia has widened significantly. And one reason for that growing gap between Africa and the rest of the world is the fragmentation that Professor Sachs talked about. And that fragmentation is costly.
Fofack reminds us that Africa once had an economic advantage over China. The reversal of fortunes is not because Africa lacks talent, resources, or potential. It's because Asia united around a coordinated development strategy. This comparison destroys the narrative that Africa is naturally behind and instead shows a clear blueprint to how we can actually catch up.
If you look at the credit rating agencies and Africa country credit ratings, the sovereign credit ratings, most of Africa, almost all of Africa is sub-investment grade. And if you look at the methodology that Fitch or Moody's or S&P uses, the criterion is if you are small, you get a lower score. If you are poor, you get a lower score. So it's almost mechanical that a poor, small country would get a sub-investment grade and then would pay very high interest rates, have low liquidity, and easily get trapped in a funding crisis. You are poor, and small, good luck. Go to the IMF, have fun, remain poor. And if you want an explanation, well, you're not creditworthy. Why aren't you creditworthy? Well, you're small and poor. And so this is a trap.
Here Sachs explains how the financial global system punishes African countries, not because they're risky, which is actually something I mentioned in the video I put out yesterday, but because they are small. Fragmentation mathematically guarantees high interest rates, debt traps, and limited growth. A single continent rating or shared institution would immediately change Africa's financial position. In other words, it would gain more leverage and they couldn't just push Africa around.
And to get out of the trap involves many things. It involves a far-sighted strategy that is investment oriented. It involves the scale of the economy. That means unity across many countries. And it requires a financing strategy. And the more there is monetary and economic integration, so that when the credit rating comes, it's a credit rating for Africa, not for Guinea or not for any individual country, then you make it. And there are many ways to do this, but one is to take the financial and monetary destiny into your hands by devising a continental-wide monetary and financial strategy.
Now the solution gets more in focus right here. Sachs lays out the architecture of a truly sovereign Africa, a continental monetary fund, unified settlements, and integrated financial markets. These are not theoretical ideas. These are concrete tools already used successfully in other regions. This is how the divide and conquer agenda is structurally dismantled.
And so we are brothers when it suits us, and we're xenophobic when it doesn't suit us. How do we break this xenophobic curse? We'll get to the point where integration will no longer be an aspiration. It may soon become a necessity. Because fragmented, we are not able to essentially progress, and development will continue to elude us.
Fofack identifies an internal barrier that Africa must overcome: the weaponization of identity and xenophobia. Colonial borders were designed to divide Africans, and when we defend them, we defend the colonial project itself. Regional hostility or tribal hostility is a major obstacle of unity, and addressing it is part of that continental solution.
There isn't the sense of urgency, or to my mind, again, I would say 5 to 10 African leaders from around the continent that say we get it and we push. Because ultimately, the AU as it is right now, the Commission, is a small bureaucratic entity. It doesn't have independent power. It's not given independent power. And it's, I think, quite useful, but it is not the kind of dynamic breakthrough that's needed. At least to my mind, there should be an overall strategy, not just a Vision 2063, but there should be an active strategy and an African face to the world, very strong, that is backed by the real political powers, which are still at the national level, but backed by national leaders who understand that the fate of their nations depend entirely on the success of the joint effort.
Sachs concludes by pointing out what is missing: a small coalition of African leaders willing to prioritize continental destiny over national politics. With leadership that embraces unity as a path to development, progress will always be slow. But with it, Africa can recognize its financial system, negotiate from strength, and finally break the cycle of external control. What we have here is a clear and comprehensive pathway for Africa to become stronger and free itself from the Western divide and conquer agenda. It's laid out with clarity, built on the ideas not of Western white people, but of Africans who envisioned a unified continent and in many cases paid for that vision with their lives. Africa has the potential to become far more powerful than what most people can imagine. If we committed to this plan, the road would be challenging, but the outcome would be well worth every step. I would love to know what you guys think about Jeffrey Sachs and his comments. Please leave your ideas in the comment section. But if you have nothing to say, would it be too much if I asked you to write the words, One Africa? It just lets me know that you watched the video to the end, you support the message, you like the channel, and you want me to keep going. Thank you so much for watching today, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.